Happy Trans Day of Visibility to you and me. If you're trans, of course. And if not, then thank you for being here anyway. It's good to have an ally. Okay.
We do not want to hear you sing.
Yeah. Happy Trans Day of Visibility. If you're new here, my name is Frank. Welcome or welcome back to my channel where I do talk about all things bookish. So you are in for a treat today because I'm going to be doing a pure recommendation video. I do not do this very often. Most of the time, I'm doing some deep dives and like book analysis kind of stuff in my reviews. But this, I'm going to keep it spoiler free to the best of my ability. I am going to share some books that I would love for you to read. And obviously, that means that they kind of have to be spoiler free because it would be kind of douchey for me to just spoil the books that I'm recommending, right? Right? I think so.
I command you to stop.
So I did read all of these for the trans rights readathon, which I have a whole other video about that if you do want to check it out, but it's over now because it's Trans Day of Visibility.
This day is bananas, B-A-N-A-N-A-S. This day is bananas, B-A-N-A.
So that means that the trans rights readathon is done. It was going from March 17th to the 31st. And if you have seen that video, then you know I had set my goal for 6 books. I bumped it up to 10, ended up reading 5, 2 of which were from the original 6, but then 3 are from the added 4. Yeah, okay. Yeah, anyway, you know what I'm talking about. Moral of the story is I read 5 books for the trans rights readathon. Okay, that's all you really need to know. But since I was able to start a 6th one, honorable mention Sour Cherry by Natalia Theodorilou. This is the 6th book that I'm currently reading, but I didn't manage to finish it. I am still going to be donating a total of €30 that I am going to split between the 2 GoFundMes that I have linked in my description. If you also maybe on this beautiful Trans Day of Visibility want to donate to some trans people in need. If you don't want to donate to the actual GoFundMes I have linked in the description, feel free to donate to any trans rights organization of your choice, or maybe just find your own GoFundMe link of a trans person in need. It doesn't have to be a lot. It could just be $5, man. I mean, come on. Moving on. Let's do this in chronological. Yeah. Let's do this in chronological order of rating, shall we? Because that way I get to save the best recommendation for last. So, starting off book 1, this was The Baker and the Bard by Fern Haught. Adorable. Absolutely adorable. When I went into this, I thought this was like a YA cozy fantasy adventure, and like technically it is, but this is I ended up discovering this is more of a children's book, I think. Very young target audience for this, in my opinion. I don't know, I didn't look up what the actual intended target audience for this book was, but if I had to guess, I would say between the ages of like 7 to 12 or 13. Something very young. Like this is for like young kids. There is a very nice, adorable, age-appropriate conversation about gender and pronouns. It doesn't take up a bulk of the book or anything like that because this is a cozy adventure, but this was done in like almost like a comic book style. I didn't know that when I was going into it. Here's just like a single page from the book. Super cute, super adorable. I actually ended up reading this twice because since I didn't know that it was a comic style book, I ended up reading it through Libby on my Kobo Clara Black and White. So I read it and I loved it. I teared up. I did tear up a little bit. I was feeling real emotional reading this, okay? It was just adorable. But I immediately, as soon as I finished the book, because it took me like half an hour to read it, as soon as I was done, I went to my iPad where I have the Libby app downloaded and just read it on that too. I spent more time looking at the illustrations because I had just finished reading it. But I mean, it was so cute, and the colors really did make a difference. I'm gonna just tell you now that if you do plan on reading this, or like maybe buying a copy to give it to a friend of yours that has a kid or anything like that, reading it in color does make all the difference. The color palette was so beautiful. It was like very whimsical and pastel and really, I mean, you could see it right here. It's really pretty. And I love the art style. I believe that the author wrote it and illustrated it. So really cool. And yeah, this was a quick read. So, you know, there you go. So book 2 was Tell Me I'm Worthless by Alison Rumfitt. And honestly, I enjoyed this book very much, and I do recommend it if you're into haunted house horror. Say that 5 times fast. Haunted house horror, haunted house horror, haunted. Oh, no, that doesn't sound right. Anyway.
Ah, that's terrible.
So this book has very overt themes about the rise of fascism, internalized misogyny, transphobia, anti-Semitism, racism, and things of that nature. So of course, do check the trigger warnings if you do intend on reading this. But this is a very character-oriented haunted house story. And I feel like if you are looking for something plot driven, you might not enjoy this so much. But if you love horror that focuses on characters themselves kind of figuring things out and going through some scary shit and having moments of self-discovery along the way, then you'll probably enjoy this very much. I had read Brainworms by this author last year, and that book was so unlike any other book I've ever read in my life that to this day it has still stuck with me. And I guess if I had to compare the two or choose between the two, I think Brainworms kind of edges out Tell Me I'm Worthless just a little bit, just because of the fact that Brainworms quite literally just altered my brain chemistry, if I'm being honest with you. I did enjoy Tell Me I'm Worthless. It was a bit slow moving though. So again, if you are in the mood to read a haunted house story in which the main characters are embarking on a journey of horror and self-discovery, and you are okay with a slower paced novel, then I think you might really enjoy this. If none of that sounds very interesting to you, then you might want to skip this one. Okay, book 3. This is The Seep by Hannah Porter. I have already made an entirely separate recommendation video about this book just because I absolutely loved this so very much. I think part of the reason why I loved it, as I've stated in the other video, it's just that I read this at the right time for me in my life. And so my emotional connection to this book was very prominent, and it overshadowed a lot of any potential negative feelings that could have arisen. I could have been a lot harsher in the way that I criticized this book, but the vibes were there for me. I just really connected not only with the main character, but with this world that was created through this, post alien invasion. And because that part of the book resonated so deeply, I enjoyed it very much. The premise of this book is about our main character named Trina kind of embarking on a journey of grief and pain post alien invasion, in which the aliens have kind of created this brand new world for humans and every other living creature on the planet. And while the world itself is beautiful and amazing and everyone is so interconnected, there is a part of Trina that just cannot cope with the loss of her wife. And we follow her on this journey of grief. And that is pretty much what this book is about. So, again, very character oriented, very character driven. This is not a plot driven novel. So, if you are looking for that, don't read this book. If you are looking for something that might alter the way that you think of alien invasions and think about what a world would look like post alien entities invading Earth and taking over, I don't know, you might enjoy this one. I mean, I can't really say much more than that without spoiling it. Just know this was a beautiful story. The one critique I do have is that chapters 7 and 8 felt confusing, like they felt a bit disjointed from the rest of the book. I felt like the way that Trina was speaking to other characters was so unlike her character, or maybe I just wasn't understanding the tone very well, and for some reason it didn't I didn't jive with it, man. I didn't connect with those two chapters. And while I was reading chapters 7 and 8, I really was scared that the book was just like falling off and that I was going to end up hating it and I was going to eat my words, because right before I got to that point, I was like, oh my God, I love this book so much. Oh my God, this book is so awesome. Oh my God, that's so cool, right? And then I read chapter 7 and 8, I'm like, shit, did I speak too soon? Chapter 9, it picked right back up and everything that I was enjoying about the book kind of returned. But I will say this felt like a fever dream. Reading this, you kind of get like whiplash a little bit based off of just like how quickly everything is moving. This takes place over the span of about 35 years. So and it's only 216 pages, I believe. So reading through it, you are kind of like moving at a pretty fast pace. If you like fast paced stories, then you might enjoy this a lot. But yeah, overall, probably one of the best reads I've had in 2026, and just overall in the last, couple years since I've started getting back into reading as an adult. This book resonated with me so deeply, and I hope that if you decide to pick it up, I hope that you enjoy it too. But again, keep in mind, one of the reasons why I love this so much was my personal emotional state while reading this. So please don't hate me if you don't like this book. Anyway, yeah, moving on. Last but most certainly not least, I have books 4 and 5, because this was a duology, and this was The Sunbearer Trials and Celestial Monsters by Aiden Thomas. I fucking loved this duology. I loved this so much because okay, so this is YA fantasy, right? And it is set in this universe that is just so heavily inspired by Mexican mythology.
Buenos dias, Aaron.
Buenos dias, Miguel.
And as someone who doesn't know jack shit about Mexican culture and Mexican mythology, I loved this. I'm not sure how accurate it is, like how much creative freedom Aiden Thomas took with the mythology itself. But from what I gathered, it seemed pretty authentic, pretty accurate. It's not just about Mexican mythology, it's also just Mexican culture, a lot of the foods that they eat and the snacks and the desserts, and like it was just really sweet. I enjoyed that very much. I just genuinely enjoyed that aspect of this duology. What's more than that is that there was an amazing cast of characters. Not just that, like, I loved our main character, Teo, but I loved Nia, his best friend. I loved Shio's journey of self-discovery, not just about their gender and stuff like that, but just like who they are as a person trying to fit into the world. I loved this so much. So essentially, the premise is it takes place in this universe in which gods kind of rule over certain cities, and they produce demigod offspring that have to compete every 10 years in what are known as the Sunbearer Trials in order to prevent a certain class of gods known as the Obsidians from returning to Earth, because the Obsidians were the bad guys and they were trying to take over the world and subjugate humans. And the Golds is the other class, the very fancy, like, think of it kind of like almost like the Hunger Games.
Now Katniss must join her fellow tribute from District 12, Peeta Malark, and 22 tributes from the other districts in a televised battle to the death. 24 enter, but only one will survive.
As in the Golds being this high class of gods would be like akin to districts 1 and 2, and then you have the Jades, which are more like the middle tier, right? And they kind of would be like districts 3 and 4, I guess. And then you have the Obsidians, district 12, blah. But obviously the power structures are different in Hunger Games versus the Sunbearer Trials. I'm just trying to make an analogy that you might understand, okay? If you haven't read this duology, it's kind of like that. So anyway, they compete every 10 years, these demigods, in order to prevent the Obsidians from returning to Earth and taking over and killing everybody. And that is as far as I want to go with that. I will say that I got everything that I needed out of this genre. I used to read a lot of YA and specifically YA fantasy, but over the last year or two, I've kind of stepped away from it just to explore different genres and stuff like that. But something I love about YA and, YA fantasy is that it takes a lot of talent for an author to write in the genre to make the stakes feel so high and important, and yet still knowing that because of the age group that this genre is kind of directed at, that there's going to be a pleasant enough resolution at the end of it. So to still be taken on that journey where you are feeling the anxiety and the tense situation that the characters have to go through, still knowing as an adult that it's probably going to work out in the end, it takes a lot of skill to do that. And I think this duology did that very well. I thoroughly enjoyed Nia's character. She made me literally laugh out loud a few times. And of course, I was kicking my feet when, oh, nope, gotta take that out. That was a spoiler. Anyway, I really enjoyed this. If you enjoy YA and YA fantasy specifically, you're gonna get pretty much everything you want and like out of this genre. Or at least I did. I don't know. I hope you do too if you decide to read it. One critique I had, if I had to give a critique, if I was just forced to do it at gunpoint, if somebody was like, give a critique about this duology, Frank, I'd be like, I wish, especially in the second book, that the lore had been expanded on a bit more. We get some of it in the prologue of the first and second books, but and of course throughout the books themselves. Quick spoiler, really quick. Let me go ahead and put up a timestamp right here where you can skip to if you have not read this duology and you want to read it, so that you can just skip ahead to this timestamp. Because one of my critiques, here we go. This is a spoiler. I didn't understand exactly why Shio's blood was what brought back the obsidians. Yes, they're an obsidian, and I get that, okay? It was just never explained why jade blood and gold blood are totally fine, but why obsidian blood would cause the obsidians to return. I wish Aiden Thomas had kind of maybe expanded on that point a little bit, especially in book 2. That was a little bit like, the book 1 is the Sunbearer trials. There's so much happening. There wasn't really time, especially because the big reveal that Shio is an obsidian isn't really until the end of book 1 anyway. But I wish in book 2, especially through Shio's chapters that we get, that maybe it could have explained why, like maybe they read a book or that told them that their blood was going to cause the obsidians to return for X, Y, and Z reason, that Soul had set it up that way and blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Something like that would have been nice, but whatever. Okay, back to the spoiler-free portion if you made it over here. So yeah, overall, I adored this duology. I would recommend this to anyone that likes YA fantasy, that is super interested in reading about anything Mexican mythology inspired. And if you are interested in a very queer cast of characters, that was something else I forgot to mention, was that in this universe, being trans and being non-binary is very common, especially among the gods and the demigods. And it is one of those things where the representation is so casual and so almost like nonchalant. Not that it's not important to these characters and in this story and in this world, but it's done in a way that didn't make it feel like, oh, here's representation for the sake of it. It felt very authentic. I felt very overjoyed to read these characters and their expression and exploration of gender. And I really liked it. In conclusion, these are the 5 books that I read for the Trans Rights Readathon, and these are 5 books that I would absolutely recommend to anyone who is interested in reading books about trans characters or by trans authors. We got a children's book, we got a horror book, we got some YA fantasy, we got some sci-fi, lit fic in there. So there's hopefully something for everybody. I'm hoping that you guys go ahead and check these out. If you do, let me know in the comments. If you've already read these, please let me know what you thought in the comments. And of course, if you have any recommendations of your own, I would absolutely love for you to drop them in the comments, because I'm always looking for more queer books to read. Anyway, until next time, you guys.